Hello, my name is Mike Lagerquist from about 1999 to 2015. I was the director of public relations at the Minnesota State University Mankato Department of Theater and Dance. We're here today with Paul Hustoles, whose tenure there extends past everyone's but Jane Early's, I think, and also Tim Storms, a 1989 graduate of the program. And Tim has been out in Hollywood working and gainfully employed, happy to say, for quite some time. So I just wanted to have this opportunity to catch up with Tim. He is originally from New Ulm. So that's kind of a great local connection. And it shows that you don't need to be from a big Hollywood family to make a living out there. So I've just kind of asked Tim to start off with a little bit of a bio of himself and how it is that he found his way to Minnesota State University Mankato.
Thanks, Mike, and hi. As you said, I grew up in New Ulm, about 30 minutes away from Mankato. I, although I'm not from a Hollywood family, that would have done me a lot of good now. I did come from a very theatrical family. I grew up, my family performed a lot. Even though I was a very shy kid, I didn't start on the performing end of it. We were always involved in community theater, performance, dance. My dad did all the technical theater for the local high schools, and my mom did costuming, props, sets, painting, all the artistic aspects of that. The other plenty of other kids in my family. I grew up with seven kids were on stage quite a bit and performing, even though, like I said, I didn't get into that until later. But as I said, it was quite an artistic family. We were always encouraged to do music and anything artistic that would come our way. Um, I also did gymnastics, martial arts, so I was used to being in front of crowds. Even though, like I said, I was quite shy still as a little kid, but um, I figured, as I said, I was a martial artist and gymnast, so I was performing that way, and then I became a juggler, a professional juggler and clown. And so I did become used to performing in front of big, huge crowds, and I actually put myself through high school, through all through my high school career. I was performing on stage and doing local theater by then, and performing and acting and singing and dancing and things like that. Albeit I still hadn't decided on a career in performing or theater or anything like that. I was going to become an electronics engineer, and I actually applied at Mankato for that. And spur of the moment, my dad said, "Hey, there's they're having auditions for a talent grant or a scholarship at Mankato State. Why don't you try for it?" And I said, "I have no idea what I'm doing." He said, "All you have to do is a monologue." And I said, "I don't really know what a monologue is, but I'll put one together." So I put together a short monologue, and I went in and I met Dr. Hustoles, Paul Hustoles, and I read for him, and he must have seen in me some kind of spark that it would carry me through. Actually, I had good grades, and I think that's what actually interested him in my career and bringing me to MSU. My performance ability at that time was, at least on stage, was pretty minor, and I really didn't know
Untapped.
what I was doing.
Untapped.
Excellent. So yeah, that's what carried me through to that. And as I said, I was already performing as a professional juggler, and then I, started doing local productions and to lead up to getting into MSU. And then after that, I just actually my first year, even after getting that scholarship at MSU, the illustrious Ted Paul Theater Scholarship, which I had no idea was so amazing. I was still planning to become an electronics engineer, and I said I'll do this for a year, and then I'll go back and do what I was really meant to do. And I started my first year at MSU in the theater program, and I fell in love with being on stage and learning everything I could about all aspects of theater, is technical theater, performance, historical theater, things like that. So it was amazing. It really sucked me in very quickly and drew me into that world, and pulled something out of me that I never knew was really in me. I was, as I said, I was very shy, and I didn't want to be on stage that much. And since then, I always want to be on stage. That's where I feel most comfortable, and I I still think I'm quite shy, and I think that in a one-on-one conversation, that's when I have a hard time. When I'm on stage and I get to be another character, that's when I love, be doing theater and film and commercials, et cetera, et cetera. Any kind of performance, that's where I feel most comfortable and happiest, when I'm creating another person, which is, what it's all about.
Okay, Paul, do you happen to remember? You said you've been doing some research.
Well, I do. It's funny because I knew that Tim was from a different century. That he before we think about the year 2000, that fin de siècle year, and that he was a pre 21st century guy. And Tim, what was interesting is that you probably don't know this, but you and I came together. I came that summer. And so that audition that we had together was one of my first auditions at MSU.
Wow.
So you were part of that new group, and of course there was a special group there because that was E.J. Subkowiak, if you remember, and Greta
Yeah.
Garash, and beloved. And I called them the originals. You were one of the originals. And what was interesting is that we did give out scholarships, but not a lot at that time. We had that freshman talent grant, but little did we know that the Ted Paul Theater Scholarship was going to become the real biggie. And you might recall that you got it twice. You
Yes.
got the second ever and the third ever Ted Paul Scholarship that we've given, and we've given that out now 35 times.
Wow.
And so you were the second and the third recipient. My research tells me that only 4 other people have done that, or 3 other people, and I have to mention them now because they might be watching this. But Ken Rosen was one, Melissa Fechtman was one, and Kim Steffen was another one. And all of those are astonishing. We're astonishing students, and so are you. But the thing I most remember is frankly, your parents. I thought your parents were kind of like this force of nature. And then I always thought of you as an electronic engineer. I mean, I thought, what is he doing? What's going on here? Other than the fact that that you seem to, one of the things that I look for in a performer is not so much their skill or not so much their talent. It's when they're in front of us and performing, are they enjoying it? And you always had that joie de performance that sparkled. And then, of course, one of the things that was fascinating with you to me was the what I'll call the learning curve. You started out at a certain skill level, and some students go like this, and some students go, and you went like this. I mean, you just got exponentially better every time you did something, and we kept you pretty busy. At that time, of course, I didn't know whether you were going to be a quote performance area or a production area, because you were one of those wonderful theater people that we all love, and that is that you did it all. I've always felt that actors who can build the set that they then strut upon are better actors for it, and you were one of those. And then you kind of brought your family, because I also remember the name Heidi. It jumps in my
My
mind.
little sister, yes.
Because Heidi, then your sister, became one of our super techies later on, and so I have these very fond memories of you being both original, and of course the Ted Paul Scholarship, for those of you who don't know that are watching this, is we do have an election, and there's no fake electors. We are all legitimate and stand up to scrutiny. But we vote, and the student who gets the highest vote amongst the faculty is the Ted Paul Scholar. So twice you became, I should go twice, there we go, twice you were acclaimed to be the most popular student amongst the faculty. And that's
I'm honored. I'm still honored. Wow.
I always, but that's because you were such a hard worker, and I want to talk about some of that hard work later. But I want you to talk about your career, and because you started off and you were very yeoman. I mean, you were schlepping away, and it wasn't until later that you kind of found your own voice. And I'd like you to talk about that.
Yeah, as I said, I was so raw and I knew nothing about performing except get up there and have fun. And that really came from, like I said, being a martial artist and being a clown and acrobat and gymnast and everything else. You just get up there and, you are who you are, and you have fun. And if you're not having fun, as you said, the audience can definitely tell. And I think that came from both my parents, especially my dad. My dad was an amazing character. He was just always, he could make you laugh, or he could scare the heck out of you just by being himself, because he was, as you said, he was a force of nature, and he was, just all the time. Anybody who met my dad would just be astounded at how open and honest and vibrant he was. Yeah. He embraced anything that he did, and I think that is part of what you're talking about with me, that work ethic, and I learned from 3 years old, anything that I did, do it wholeheartedly and do it as hard as I could, or don't do it at all.
Your ability.
Exactly. And my dad always did that, and he was, even still, he was my idol. And I look up to, just a few certain people, especially him, as somebody who he did so many different things. Yeah. And I go, okay, I need to learn how to do this. And, so I delve into something, and then I go, oh, but my dad did that better. And he knew so many things. He was brilliant. He was a genius in his own way. And he was a moron in his own way too, as I am. But that's where I get that from my dad, especially, who taught me, and he was a teacher as well. So I embraced from very early on the idea that if I can teach something to someone, I'm going to learn it a lot better. That's why I've always loved teaching, and I've been able to break down. I've never been a fast learner, but I'm a very meticulous learner. And if I can break down what I want to learn, I can extrapolate from a whole bunch of different things and pull those things together and make it work in my own way sometimes. Sometimes I can get it exactly right, but I know how to figure things out, and I know how to work hard and press through. And I'm very patient, which is also a blessing for me, because I don't get bored with myself, and I don't put a lot of, even though I put pressure on myself, I don't put pressure on myself immediately. I am I'm just I power through, and I keep going, and I go back to it, and I gnaw away at whatever it is I'm doing if I want to learn something. So that's it's been a really thrilling lifetime achievement for me to be able to work in that fashion, to be able to embrace life and to to be able to learn constantly. And still, I feel I've just realized recent. Well, I think I've known it for a long time, but my entire life has been dedicated to teaching others and learning. And I find I'm most comfortable when I actually can work under a mentor. When I have somebody such as you, Dr. Hustoles, you were my mentor for so many years. My father was. I have, a couple people like that even now. When I have a mentor that I can look at and I can, you know, ascribe to the way that they work and look at how they lived their life and how they've learned, I do much better. And I don't like floundering. I don't like going my own way, even though I do that. I'm very much of a rogue, lone wolf, but at the same time, I like to look at examples and follow an example that I know works, and I live on that, and it makes me feel really good, and it makes me feel powerful.
Yeah. Speaking of examples, Tim, you don't know this, but I've used you as an example, well, frankly, for decades. Because often when, every time we cast and recently, now we're talking pre-COVID, because COVID just blew everything out of the water. But pre-COVID, we built ourselves up to 17 fully mounted productions every year. And
Wow.
every time we went through a casting situation, and we'd always have students who'd come in, and some were grateful and some would say, well, you didn't you don't care about me as a student, and you didn't cast me the right way. It's like, no, we really do care. And then I would say, let me tell you this story. And I never used your name, but the story was about you, and that was, I remember once when we had a student who I cast in a musical, and you might recall that the musical was Guys and Dolls,
Yeah.
and and that the student was cast, nice featured role, one of the trio who gets to sing about the horses. And then I said, but then another show came up, and the show, and this, I haven't thought about this until Mike told me that we were going to be talking, but the show was Jessie and the Bandit Queen.
Yes.
And a very difficult show, only 2 people in that show, as opposed to Guys and Dolls, which I think had 50 people there. It was a huge cast. It was a huge cast. And I read the script, and we don't do precasting at MSU, but I thought you were perfect for the role of Jesse James, in this show that was going to be part of the Kennedy Center Festival, which this year is all virtual, by the way.
Wow.
We knew it was going to be a participating production. And I remember then the director had auditions. I encouraged you to audition, and the director came to me and said, oh my God, the thing is that I really want to cast Tim, but I know he's cast in Guys and Dolls, which of course I was directing. And I said, and so you want to take him out of Guys and Dolls, a show that he's already cast in and committed to. And if he was equity, that would be that contract. And you want to take him away and then have him be the lead of Jessie and the Bandit Queen. And I think the director was stunned when I said, I think it's a great idea. I think, Tim can easily play one of the horses in Guys and Dolls, but to play the title role would be a truly wonderful experience for him. And one of the things that I always loved about MSU is that, yeah, we could talk at you, but the really important thing was we gave you experience. You go out and do it. My philosophy is, if you want to learn how to swim, here, let me push you in the lake, and I'll throw a life preserver maybe, but try it and see what can happen. And I must remember, and I got to tell you that I thought you were brilliant in that show, and so did everybody who saw it at the Kennedy Center Festival that you started. But I keep on telling that story about our dedication. And then, of course, the usual response to that story is, well, can I drop out of a show and then become the lead of another show? Well, I say, well, it doesn't exactly work that way. That's not the point of the story. But the other thing that I remember is you saying, if I recall, this might be fantasy, but I recall talking to you about it, and you saying, no, I'm committed to Guys and Dolls, and I'll stay there, even though I would rather do this show. And that even was more kudos to you, was good, because that's what I needed to hear you say, I'll do my original commitment, even though this would be more exciting. And then, of course, it was very exciting to be able to open that door and get what I would call a win-win situation, a win for you and a win for the department.
Thank you. And honestly, I that show changed my life and my
Became an
performance.
outlaw, was that?
Yeah, yes. I started robbing banks after that. Um, Performance-wise, it opened so many aspects to me, and I think that really turned me from a unqualified performer to at least mediocre. And
Well, or what I thought of is to me, before that moment, you really followed directions really well. After that moment, you started setting your own direction.
yes,
And to me,
definitely.
that's the point, and all of our good students, and I won't mention any names about who are not of our good students, but certainly all the Ted Paul Theater winners reached that. And then the key for me was always, when did you get there? Is it at the end of your freshman year? Some people didn't get there until their senior year. Some people, just a few, maybe didn't get there at all while they were still with us, but then achieved it later on.
Yeah.
In your case, that was the show. That to me was the turning point where you became what I would call an actor. That is to say, somebody who's making their own choices rather than everything that we feed you. And that's and as a teacher, that's the most exciting thing for a teacher is to
Yes.
see your student go, when you say, "Fly, my monkeys," and you fly and do it on
Yes.
your own. So
And
that,
yeah, I it was the biggest turning point, and it was more than just playing characters and becoming an actor. It opened a whole new window to what was possible. It was like, oh, I had no idea what I was doing up until, oh my God, look at that. Look what I could do.
right.
And I was amazed. And what's funny is I think you were sitting right there, but when we went to the uh, Kennedy Center Irene Ryan thing awards, we did the show, and then you told me to go backstage for our adjudication. I walked in the door and I sat down, and the adjudicator sat there looking at me, going, "Who are you?"
Yeah, I was there.
And I went, I'm here for adjudication." And he said, "Well, I'm waiting for the lead actor." And I said, that was me." And he went, "You don't look anything like that." And I went, "Wow, I guess I'm going to be a character actor." So it was,
Of course, I would argue that all actors are character actors.
I would too now.
play
Yes,
the character.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, my head literally just exploded at that moment, and it opened up so much to me, performance wise and life wise, and just amazing. So thank you for releasing me and pushing me and making me sink or swim. So that was amazing.
Now, Mike, I know you want to ask her about after he started flying, because my head, Tim, exploded when you started getting cast after MSU too.
Yeah, Tim, do you want to talk? We've kind of reached the pinnacle of your MSU career, it sounds like. So do you want to talk about how you used that when you left Mankato and went out, and what your thoughts were when you left Mankato? Were you going to be an actor? Were you just still open to whatever possibilities might be out there?
I think that definitely changed my mind. Once I hit that role and a few other roles like that, I totally embraced. I let go of the idea of becoming a anything else, and I knew the need was there. They say, if you can do anything else, do something else. But if you have to act, be an actor. And that's when I knew there was just no turning back. And in fact, the thing that I embraced after that was I knew I wanted to be, as Dr. Hustle said, a character actor per se. And I've always, in every show that I've ever done, especially theater, I've always said, I don't necessarily need a big role, but if you're gonna put me in a supporting role, give me a couple roles. Let me show you what I can do, and let me audition for this and this and this, and you can choose, and then the onus is on you what you think I'm going to be better at, and it's so many times that has done so well for me because I've really drawn a lot of things out of directors and producers and casting directors to say, wow, I never would have pictured you as that. And I've scored so many different roles because I didn't have any preconceived notions of what I was going to be, and I brought something very strange or different, or a new perspective to something, and it's done really well by me, and I've loved that about my career. That as I said, I discovered that I wanted to be somebody different. I wanted to play a different character on stage or on film, and that really cemented that when I've been able to do, especially in theater, to do a lot of shows where I am cast in several different roles and the audience has no clue that I'm a different person. And I just love that. That's, it's I guess Laurence Olivier was a master of wearing prosthetics and character acting, even though he was a leading man. And I kind of embraced that kind of feeling about acting. That I like to do things differently when it comes to acting, and really go all out and transform myself, and I love that. That's why I love all genres of theater as well, and all genres of filmmaking. I like to do, people say, "Are you a comedy guy? You seem like a comedy guy." And I go, "No, I'm a comedy, drama, musical theater, dance, fight, stunt. I like to. I'm a jack of all trades, even though I'm a master of none, as they say. I think I do all of them pretty well, and I relish that feeling, and I know that even my weaker points, those are the ones that I really like to delve into and dig into really deeply. The characters that I don't do as well, or the accent that I don't do as well, or things like that, things that people wouldn't see as in my wheelhouse, and I love that. So
So
it's
Tim, well, why did you decide to go out to California? From New Ulm to Mankato is a big enough drive, but from Mankato you just kind of headed out. Can you talk about that?
I actually didn't head directly out to LA, even though I made a stopover out here. I went. I was already doing summer theater out in Ohio, a big outdoor drama. So in that production as well, I was playing multiple characters, and it was a huge, epic, like very much like a movie. And I'd always been a cinephile, and I'd always loved movies, and I think that was actually part of my, uh, I wouldn't say downfall, but part of my weakness uh, in theater was my corrections from you would always be, or criticisms, I think, were you're acting a little too naturally, or make it bigger. And I would really work on making things bigger for the stage. And then when I would be in some productions, people would go, "Wow, you're very much like a movie actor."
Sure.
And I would go, "Wow," before I even decided to come out to LA. And I realized that I like nuance. I love the intricacies, even though filmmaking can be pretty boring compared to theater. Doing the characters,
Harder work.
yes, yes, exactly, and doing it again and again and again is part of the craft, as opposed to, you know, when you're doing it on stage, you're doing it again and again and again before you get on stage. And in the movies, you're doing it again and again and again while you're sitting in front of the camera waiting for them to fix this light and the director to do something different, and et cetera, et cetera. But I really love that part about it too, even though going back to it, I love the hugeness and the broad epic scale of theater. And to me, after I got out here, I was still only doing theater for several years, classical Shakespearean theater. And I went, you know, this is very much, I can do a blend of movie style acting, but I can also, I love the grandeur and the epicness of especially Shakespearean theater and the outdoor drama that I'd done. And I went, you know, this is like an action movie. And I can make this work in so many different directions because I have a background in movie fighting already, and stage combat and movement, miming, clowning, physical action, things like that. And it all just, you know, maybe it was at one time, but it all became pretty clear to me in a very short amount of time that, to me at least, acting was acting. And I knew how to dial it down or dial it up,
Exactly. Yeah.
and put it in the proper perspective, and you know, different techniques. And that's another thing that I love about my training from MSU, was beyond the artistic acting methods that I learned, and you know, learning how to free up my abilities. I learned technique, and especially from you, Dr. Hustoles, acting technique was one of my most favorite subjects, because I love that nuance, and I love the details. And I was going to be an engineer, and I love the little intricacies about acting. And you know, if you do this, if you play with this way that you're speaking, et cetera, it's going to come across a little bit differently. And I really embrace that. I embrace the dichotomy of every aspect of performance now, whether it's, you know, coming from a different genre or a different technique or a different style, or working with a different actor, or et cetera, et cetera. It's I still find it fascinating every single day, every single time I'm in front of the camera, no matter what I'm doing. That's why it's so thrilling to me, and I just love it. So it's, you know, it's the thing that I was meant to do, I believe.
Now, Tim, was your first movie the Mel Brooks Robin Hood Men in Tights? That's when I remember seeing you on the.
First major movie, yes, I'd done a couple of shorts for friends, and a couple of things in Minneapolis, like that. But yes, my first major motion picture was Robin Hood Men in Tights, and that was thrilling, and still thrilling to this day. That was amazing. And I'd only been out here a short amount of time. As Paul said, it was a little bit circuitous, but actually I came out to LA in hopes of pursuing a film career, and I applied for a few movies. I got a job my first day coaching gymnastics, and which I still do to this day after 35 years or however long I've been out here, but not at that same place. But I applied to a couple of films which I thought were smaller films, and I had other things going on, and I had people back in Minnesota, especially my old high school in New Ulm, asking me if I could direct for them. And I went, no, not right now. I spent a few weeks out here, as I said, applying for a couple of things. I applied for my first equity show at the Pasadena Playhouse, which is pretty big out here, for The Wizard of Oz. I applied for a Billy Crystal movie for a supporting role and a couple other movies. And then I decided, because I was engaged at the time and my ex-fiance, it was actually applying to Mankato State to come back to Mankato and to work there and to direct and to do a few things there for a while, and then to come back out here to LA after a couple of years. So I got back to Minnesota. I started directing the high school shows, which were brilliant, and not because of me. I'm saying it was just an awesome experience. And I got to do a lot of great things while I was there. As soon as I got back to Minnesota, I got offered the role in the Billy Crystal movie, which I had to turn down, which would have been a big, feather in my cap. I got offered that first equity role, which I had to turn down. I got offered 2 other movies, which I turned down. So I have a pretty extensive resume of films and projects that I've actually turned down for major producers and directors. But the time that I spent there just clarified and cemented in the time that directing and actually performing on my own and doing other things that made me really want to get back out here. I came back out here, and within 6 months, I believe, I saw in Backstage West, which was a
paper.
a paper to for auditions, because we didn't have anything online at the time. It said cattle call audition for. It didn't even say it was a Mel Brooks movie or anything like that. So I went down to Hollywood, Warner Hollywood Studios, and I looked, and it was truly a cattle call. There was a line around the block, about 4 blocks long, of people standing in line for this cattle call. I walked in the door finally after about 2 hours, and there were just stations of things to audition for. So the first one was stage combat, which I'd already been teaching, and I'd taught that at MSU, and I'd been teaching it professionally for a long time. And I went through a sword fight, and I, in fact, choreographed a sword fight, and the sword master went, "Wow, you're obviously experienced at this." I went, "Okay, great." I went to the next station. They said, "Can you do any tumbling at all?" I was a gymnast. I threw some flips, and they went, "Okay." Also impressive. Next thing, I can't remember what it was even, but there was another station of things to do, and I obviously did well by them. I was walking out the door, and they said, "Did you do the archery?" And I went, "No, but I know how to do archery. I grew up doing archery." They said, "Well, there's a couple bows over there." I went over. There were master archers using their own long bows, and there were these 2 tiny little junior bows, and I grabbed one and I shot 4 bullseyes, and they went, "Okay." And then they said, "Okay, we're definitely going to be calling you." And I went, "All right, great." I went back the next day because they were looking for specialty acts, jugglers, unicyclists, whip people. I did all those things, and they went, "Why are you back here?" And I said, "I just wanted to show you more stuff." And they went, "We'll call you." Just great. Fantastic. I waited for 2 months and nothing. And I was so angry. They liked me. They really liked me, I thought. And I got so angry, and I sat around so morbidly, unhappy, not getting anything. And finally I get a call from casting, and they said, "You are cast as one of the King's Guards." And I get a call. I went, "Great. When do I show up?" They told me the info. 5 minutes later, I get a call from another person in the same casting agency. They said, "We're casting you as one of Robin Hood's merry men." And I went, "I just got cast as one of these guys. Which one do you want me for?" And they said, "You get to choose." And I said, "Which is going to have more screen time?" They said, "The merry man, definitely. I'll take that." So I got cast as one of Robin Hood's men in tights. So that was when I got to set for that, it was amazing. I got to use a lot of, in the beginning I didn't get to use a lot of those skills. I was basically a glorified extra. But once again, the training paid off. They would put me in the background of scenes with Mel Brooks or Carrie Elwes, the leads. And then either Carrie or Mel Brooks comes over and he says, "Hey, everybody, do what Tim's doing here." And that would make it into the movie. And Mel would give me lines, and which none of them made it in the movie. But all of a sudden, I was getting upgraded. I was getting bigger parts, and they would put me in scenes. And then it's like, "Can you come back tomorrow?" So I was getting much more screen time than I'd ever believed would happen. And then the last few days, they said, "Okay, so we have professional stuntmen here who are going to do this big battle scene. And we want you to run around in the background with this rubber sword and do, this battle scene." And I said, "Well, I know how to fight." And they said, No, we have pros here. And as I said, I'd already had that experience. But I acceded to that and said, okay. I grabbed another person who I knew had stage combat experience, and I said, I choreographed a fight. And we ran through the middle. So instead of just running through the middle of this big battle scene, we stopped, and I turned around and I started fighting this guy. And then we ran off. And we were using rubber swords, and that fight made it into the movie more than the other fights because they liked it. So like I said, I've always done that, and I've always added lines. I've always added shtick and lotsy and things from my theater background, where you're doing your own creative thing in a lot of ways, and it makes it into films a lot of times because it draws attention.
And Tim, that same thing happened with your Spider-Man experience, yes?
Yes. Well, actually, in my first, yes, in Spider-Man it happened. Before that, even I was doing, what was the show? Swordfish. Yes, I have the poster on the wall over there. Swordfish with John Travolta and Hugh Jackman, and I was slated to spend one day on set as a stuntman because a friend of mine was a stunt coordinator, and he asked me, "Hey, you'll play the bank manager and you'll get smashed by this, or you'll jump out of the way of a car." And then I got angry because he pulled me out of that, and he said, "No, we're going to turn you into the bank manager." So that already increased the role there. And then during that performance, the director said, "Wow, do more of that." And the producer came in, and I frightened everybody so much doing this stunt, getting hit by a Humvee, which I actually was hit by a Hummer. But I was acting like it did a lot more damage. And they went, "Oh my God." So they had to clear the entire set because everybody kept screaming every time I got hit by the car. So that upgraded me right there. And instead of just leaving me there crushed against the wall, the director said, "I want to put you in the rest of the movie. So you're going to be a hostage now." So instead of doing 2 days of work on that, I had 9 weeks of continuous working in that movie with the leads. And every time something would come up, they would go, "Okay, cut to Tim reacting and acting like something's wrong," and I would just overplay it, and they would love it. And so it was amazing that way. And that's happened to me in so many different movies where I just add something. I add a line. I add, in Spider-Man 2, same thing happened. I started adding lines, and it made it into the movie. And they extended my time on the show. So I've been so fortunate, but it comes with training, and it comes with really understanding the dynamics of what's going on in a movie set, when not to chime in, when not to try to influence what's going on, to just shut your mouth and let the big people do their work. And then when you get that moment, when you show them something that's funny or exciting or a combination of those things or appropriate to the situation, then it's going to probably make it in there, and the editor will go, hey, this really makes sense, or the director will do the same thing. So I've been fortunate, but I've also been well trained to understand, to wait for those moments and to just capitalize on them when they show up, so
So it gets back to the old thing where you're talking about when is it good to give focus and when is it good to take focus.
very
And
much.
and you have to be able to balance that. And some people are really good at taking it, but they don't know how to give it.
Yes.
And again, I think a true actor understands the importance of that. And clearly, you learned that lesson very well.
Thank you. Thanks to you.
Well, Tim, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, if you wanted to talk about how that led into, I was, like I say, looking through things online and the Academy of Movement Arts and Sciences, where you have, is that your operation?
It is, yes. And that's the culmination of everything physical that I've always done. Like I said, when I was 4 years old, I started gymnastics. When I was 12, I started martial arts. I've been choreographing fights for stage and film since I was 14 years old. So that's always been a part of my life. Movement has always been a part of my life. When I got to MSU, I really invested myself heavily into dance. So as well as being in the theater program, I would go do performances. So I actually danced the Nutcracker Ballet several years with the Mankato Ballet. And that was amazing. And I've actually tried to keep up with my dance performance aspects. I was a semi-pro salsa dancer for a while. I learned ballroom dancing and swing dancing and all types of social dancing at MSU, tap dancing, everything that you could use on stage, as well as the stage combat, which has really done well by me, which led into the stunt career. All types of movement, the clowning, circus arts, juggling, walking on stilts, tight wire, unicycling, anything movement oriented. I always embraced mime. And I've been so blessed, like I said, through my parents. My parents we would do this festival over in New Ulm, which turned into, I think it's Oktoberfest or something now, but we would have a festival every summer called Heritage Fest. And they would import performers from all over, especially Europe, bands, and they would bring jugglers and mimes, and the top people in their clowns, the top people in their crafts would come to this festival and other festivals that we held in New Ulm and around the area. And I would get the amazing opportunity to work with these people and to study under these people, the best jugglers, the best mimes, the best clowns, the best of everything. And I would embrace that because I got that from my dad. And learned something from everyone. And, I love doing that. And it was so amazing because I got all these amazing skills that if you would look back in the day when I was doing those, you would call me a nerd that is antisocial, that just does his own thing for the sake of doing those things. But then in my mind, I've always realized that I can put this together with this and perform this and use this. And as I said, when I was in high school, I was making a pretty good living already as a professional juggler. All summer long, I would go from county fair to county fair and festivals, and I would put that all together, and I would use all of those skills. And all through my life, working as a martial arts teacher, gymnastics coach, et cetera, through all that teaching, I went, this all works so well together. I need to be doing this, and I need to be passing these skills on. And I'd always done that in separate areas, in separate aspects. I'd always separated those things. And I went, I know how to put these things together. I want to show other people how to synergize the movements and the artistic abilities that they have, whether it's circus with dance or martial arts or whatever. And that's what I've always capitalized on. And now it seems to be that is a huge trend. Free runners like to do gymnastics, and it's always been my passion, and it seems to be a popular thing. So that's what I love doing, and I still have sometimes it's actually gotten in the way of my real career of movies or whatever, but I can't get away from it. I can't get away from teaching, and I love whenever I would get tired of movies and all the politics and all the garbage that you have to go through and waiting for a job and having to negotiate the contracts and et cetera, I would go back to my teaching career. And sometimes I would actually get stuck in that because I was really, promoting that. And sometimes, a lot of times, being the perfectionist I would bring someone in and expect them to teach these things, and I couldn't get someone that would be able to teach everything that I wanted them to teach. So I would end up teaching them this part of what I wanted them to teach, and it would be another job for me then. I've found a really nice balance that way. So I've laid off on that, and I know how now to, when I can find those people, pick and choose and bring them to me to teach certain aspects of movement that I want them to teach in my school, wherever that school is. I rent out spaces from other people, but that's what I do now. And in fact, I specialize in stunt work a lot, which is movie fighting, which in the movie business there are a few people that teach it, but not to the depth and the technique that I really learned from my stage career and from my legitimate martial arts training. So I know I've learned how to put that into the movie fighting business, where it is a technique, not just okay, copy this person and try to do things based on what you see, but actually physically breaking down the technique and clarifying that and codifying that and saying this is how you do that. So I specialize in that, and I worked on a tiny little movie called The Matrix, and I got exposed to. I was just brought on to teach the actors the gymnastics elements of it, but then what I found out was I was actually teaching them some of the martial arts parts of it, and then because we were working with Hong Kong choreographers who didn't speak any English, they would a lot of times say, "Hey Tim, come over here. Can you explain this to the actors?" So I would be explaining technique that I didn't even know, and that's where it all comes together. Like I said, I can extrapolate and I can look at something and say this is very similar, and that's where I learned how to do high-level wire work that we use in movies. And that's what I specialize in now, is the gymnastics, the ballet, the movement, the fighting on wires, and the stunts, performance, weaponry, all those things. That's what I specialize in. And that was another huge turning point for me to learn how to do those things. And I never turned back from that. And, I got no credit for that. I got very, very little pay for that. But the experience was totally invaluable for me. And I've ridden on my own coattails for a long time based on, those experiences. So that's what that is about, the Academy of Movement Arts and Sciences. And I wanted to make it sound highfalutin as well as explain, everybody said, why did you use that name? And I want it to be indicative of what I actually teach. And it makes sense to me. So that's what it's about. And I've had the luxury of training some of the highest level performers in all aspects of the movie industry. People that you would have no idea, no comprehension, don't know how to move the way that they move on screen. I've been crucial in their performances, and you look at them off camera and you go, really, that it makes no sense that you look that good on screen. And I take great joy in knowing that I had at least a little something to do with that in many aspects as well, technique-wise, as well as maybe giving them some performance hints and helping their character and helping them do what they had to do. So I'm thrilled about that part of my life as well.
Creating that illusion.
Yes.
That's the magic. It's the magic of theater. It's the magic of film.
It really is.
Yeah, Tim, I just have a question. And Mike, I don't know how long you want this to go on, but how are you surviving the COVID crisis? I mean, we're right now looking at thousands of people getting infected every day, and we just passed the 1 million mark from the last 7 days. 7 days, people. How have you adapted or changed, or are you just hibernating right now, or what are you doing?
Luckily, I am very antisocial, so I've hibernated. I've been single for a while, and I don't tend to go out and do a lot of stuff. In addition to that, I think that my lifestyle has been conducive to staying healthy. I like to work out. I like to stay in shape. I've built my life around training others to do that. I still, even though I can't keep my clientele. I can't be doing my classes in facilities or training people in facilities. I'm doing a few Zoom classes, and I'm training a few people on a daily or weekly basis, and I work out with them, and I take really long walks. So I've always built my lifestyle around that. I try to eat healthy. I get my vitamin D. I live in a place where I can, take in some sun. Things that, and I'm also, I try to really keep aware of health and science news, and I follow, I try to stay on, I try not to be too rigid about it, but I really like to delve into the science of things, and I consider myself still a scientist in a lot of ways. So I like to know the medical aspects of pandemics and things like that, and health and nutrition and things like that. So that's how I've gotten by. In that regard also, I have worked a couple of times on bigger productions just recently, and there have been no outbreaks on the shows. I just worked, I double Patrick Stewart, and I train Patrick Stewart almost daily. Sir Patrick Stewart, for those of you kids that don't know who he is, he's Professor X in the X-Men movies, as well as one of the most brilliant classical Shakespearean actors of our time. And I have the thrill of being good friends with him and his personal trainer and his stunt double and his photo double. and I get to work with him.
Well, and he has a new commercial out that plays 10 times a day in Mankato, every day.
The Uber Eats one.
Yeah.
A lot of that is me over the, when you see him over the shoulder, I actually got to, it was thrilling because I got to play air hockey with Luke Skywalker and hang out with Luke Skywalker. But it's also, Patrick Stewart is a good friend, and I get to hang out with him and work with him, and every day still is a master class for me to learn not only from a classically trained Shakespearean actor who I've studied every one of his works, but he is so underrated as a film and television actor, and I marvel at his work ethic at 80 years old, as well as his professionalism and his acting ability, which is so underrated, and he blows these other actors out of the water, and he still comes to me, he goes, "Oh, I wasn't happy with that. I don't think that was my best performance. My voice gave out on that." And and I'm like, "Really? This other guy didn't even come in knowing his lines, and you knew the whole damn script." So,
Yeah.
So that's another amazing thing that really keeps me going. He is, and a couple other people, but he is one of the driving factors in my life to first of all keep him healthy at 80 years old. I have to be prepared to stunt double him on that, and we have 2 more seasons of Star Trek Picard coming up, where I am him a lot of the time, not even just stunt doubling, I'm there, I'm his body double, and I'm his trainer, so I have to keep him in shape enough to go on with a performance day, which is rigorous even for me, but for an 80-year-old man to do that
It's unbelievable.
is astounding.
Yeah, I saw that series, and you said that he's underrated, but he's well beloved. I mean, my God, I couldn't
Yes.
believe. I kept on asking, asking my little Echo Dot box, how old is Patrick Stewart? How old is it? I could not believe, because he certainly doesn't move like that. Or maybe it was you, and you certainly don't move like an 80-year-old either.
When I want to, I
Unless
do.
you want to.
That's another thing that I really embrace. That's what I was talking about, the character acting. I have gotten compliments, and my role, once again, I'm tooting my own horn, but I've been so thrilled, especially on this show, but other shows and with other actors, I've been able to I do everything I can to embody when I'm in character as at first I get into character as Sir Patrick Stewart before he even gets into character as Picard or whatever character he's playing, Professor X or whatever. And then I get into character with him and I try to follow him and get into character as his character. And physically I change and I adapt and I morph, and then I try to change my vocals and imitate him, and I use his accent and I study his accent, and I've actually been allowed to give entire monologues and entire speeches as his character to an entire set of his co-actors. And I've gotten standing ovations from the other actors saying, "How did you pull off?" And they loved my acting, they loved my accent, they loved my, my characterization, and they can't believe that I'm not Patrick Stewart at the time. And I just go, "Okay, I must be doing something right," So
Well, you've got the hairstyle perfect.
that was the big thing, yes. So I've matched that completely, and I've actually had to stay very skinny because he wants to stay. It's funny because at 80 years old, you tend to get sarcopenic anyway, or get very skinny and lose muscle mass. And I'm trying to fight against that as his trainer, because personally, I don't want to get that way. And secondly, I think he's going to look better and stronger. I want his character to gain vitality. But he says, I think I look better when I'm gaunt and I'm thin and my cheeks are pulled in. I go, okay. So he loses weight. He loses 10 pounds at a time. And I'm exactly his same size. And then I try to match him, and I start going, oh, I have no power. I have no energy. I have no strength left. And it kills me. And he's going, I'm just fine at 80 years old. And I'm going, please help me. Let's gain some weight now. So he tells me that, and I go, no. Let's up our protein a little bit. Let's work a little bit harder today, and let's work on our biceps. So he's actually looking pretty jacked for an 80-year-old man now. And I like to take a little credit for that, but it's very very personal for me, and it's for me as well. So yeah, so that's another aspect that I love about doing what I do. That's another blend of mixing the physical aspects and the knowledge of health and fitness and those kind of things with the performance. And even I've found vocally at 80 years old, he sometimes has a hard time not getting hoarse. And when we work on his physicality, when we work on certain aspects of releasing his shoulders and strengthening his neck or strengthening certain parts of our bodies, his voice comes back, and he immediately it's like, oh, I feel much better. I can see a physical difference immediately, and I'm going, wow, this is something that I was taught, warm-ups back in the day. And luckily, I was given the wherewithal to learn how to take vocal training and singing classes from Diana Moxness and Dr. Hustoles, and learn some opera and things like that. So learning the vocal training also carries over to what I'm doing in the performance, and learning how to project into a giant 5,000 seat amphitheater does so much good for me to know how to carry myself now and how to keep all my instruments in the best shape that I possibly can. And it still amazes me, the synthesis and how that all still works together. And it's amazing. It's thrilling,
That's great.
I don't know if I tend to get excited about ideas, and I'll get off track. So is that anything close to what you asked me? I can't remember.
I don't know, but I'd love to listen to you.
Yeah, I think it was a question about COVID, but I think you touched on that.
Oh, yes. So I like to stay healthy in all aspects, and I like to understand the medical aspects of every problem that I have, every injury that I've ever gotten through stunt work, et cetera, et cetera. I like to know how to fix myself. And I tend to think that I probably would have skipped out of the electronics engineering had I not gone on the theater and become a pre-med or something like that, because I love every aspect of health. And in fact, I have my own kids web series where I combine superhero, comedy, and health and fitness into that web series. So I love doing that, and I've been doing that for years. And I like to, disperse that kind of information when it comes to health and fitness as well. So that's another aspect of my life that just is so blends in with who I am and my psyche so well. And it's fortuitous that I happen to be able to study under the most amazing people. My teachers, I'm raving again, my teachers in every aspect of my life, I've somehow come across teachers that really somehow appealed to me in some certain aspect. Whether I liked them or not, I was able to learn from them. And I knew that they knew their stuff, whether I didn't like their personality. And I tend to ride on that nowadays too. I think I'm an amenable person and amicable when it comes to meeting other people. And even if I don't get along with someone, I know I can learn from someone something. And that has always driven me. And I love to absorb other people's knowledge and energy and things like that. Much more so than if I can do it in person. It's so much better than Googling something for me, because it can be so dubious when I'm looking online and I go, I don't know if I believe that or not, because I can find an opposing view. But if I can have a discourse with someone, if I can actually talk to them and understand why, what their motivations are behind they do what they do, I can either accept or reject that then, and I don't have to just accept or reject what they're talking about based on my prior opinions, but like I said, extrapolating on other people's opinions that I've actually talked to. And that's why I think that, we're still not getting away from human interaction and learning from humans. And that's why that's still so important to me. Personal one-on-one interaction with a teacher or a mentor, whether they believe that they're teaching you or not, they're teaching you. You get to learn something from someone every single day. So
I'm glad we got Patrick Stewart in there, because I noticed from your bio that Star Trek has had a fairly strong role in your career. You've played on several, weren't you on, was it on Enterprise that you were?
yes, I had the great fortune of working on a lot of episodes of Star Trek Enterprise with Scott Bakula. I got featured on that show a lot as a Vulcan and aliens. And once again, every time I got into that situation, they would say, "Hey, come do this for us." So my endeavors on shows like that would expand. So I would get a lot more episodes, or I would, I did one episode where I was supposed to be just an alien and falling down, like stunt guys do. But then they started, I would really milk it, and they would put me on camera and give me a solo and give me a spotlight and say, "Hey, how about we do this stunt?" And then I would become a character, and it just morphed from there once again. So that was a thrilling show to do. Actually now it's very funny, because I've done, and because I'm Patrick Stewart's double, and this will be going, hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, we'll be doing 2 more seasons of Picard. But this is my second Star Trek show. But I've been approached not only with fan mail and people from across the globe on Facebook, and I'm astounded at the number of people that hit me up, wanting autographs, et cetera, but now the Trekkie Conventions, I am slated to be, I was supposed to be going to one in Atlanta. They were going to fly me down to Atlanta. I was going to be a special guest star for Star Trek Atlanta convention, and then I was going to do the big one in Vegas in August. Both of those have been postponed, so I'm slated next year to be going to these Trekkie Conventions as guest for autograph signing and speaking, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll be in the the loop for those things.
In the multiverse.
Yes, as well as the multiverse. And so, yeah, I'm having the great fortune of having 2 more seasons to go. And, I heard Patrick told me yesterday that everything is still going according to plan when we're supposed to start shooting in January for the next 2 seasons. So, knock on wood, everything hopefully keeps going.
Well, I enjoyed season 1. Has season 2 been out there yet, or is that scheduled for broadcast of
Of
Picard?
Picard. No, we haven't even shot it yet. That's
Oh, okay.
we're planning to do back-to-back seasons. So I have a full year of filming coming up starting in January, which I'm so thankful for because work is very scarce right now, especially due to COVID, but also things have gone awry with not only Screen Actors Guild messing around with our residuals and our contracts, and also the pension and health and things like that have been all misaligned, and a lot of politics have come in, and a lot of misrepresentation has come in, and we're being misled and misrepresented by our own union, and problems are arising. So things are not going that well in that aspect. But like I said, luckily I had an entire season of Picard last year, plus these commercials, the Uber Eats commercials. We just did this past weekend. We did a huge set of commercials for the network Paramount. That's going to be the new streaming network that they're going to be on. So I've been kind of pulled into that situation. So luckily I'm able to make the amount of days that I need for my health insurance, et cetera, et cetera. And so many people in the business now are not making that. Even high-level people, they're kicking everybody that's on their pension above 65, that's basically retired, off of the residual scales, which is horrible. So they're losing, all these vested senior performers are losing their health insurance from our industry. And that's all they've gotten. They've done this their entire life, and now the rug is being pulled out from under them, and it's just horrible. Like I said, am in a blessed situation where I'm actually able to pull myself through right now. So I've gone up and down, and people don't realize how difficult the business actually is. I've gone broke so many times. I've been in the situation so many times where I haven't had work, a 2-3 month hiatus in the business where you don't have work, and I have to rely on just what I'm making through teaching. And that's not, it's not a huge amount. So I've been fortunate that way, and I've always been industrious that way. And luckily, my good Minnesota boy work ethic has always pulled me through, and I've always been able to find work and make work. But it's a little scary in the industry now. But like I said, I'm blessed right now, and I know that even when things go bad, I know how to make things work, which is great. And a lot of people in my business do not know how to do that. They don't know how to save the money. They don't know how to branch out and do anything else. And luckily I started out as such a horrible actor that I had to learn how to do other things. So,
well, and Tim, we are blessed that you are one of our beloved alums. And just what you've said over this last almost hour and a half, there's so many kernels of wisdom there that we can share with our students, and we look forward to your future work. And now we got to go back and take a look at Men in Tights just to
Yeah.
see. I think I've seen every frame that you're in, but I've got to go re-examine that now.
Yeah, I had a beard and a wig, but
Right,
I
right.
actually made it. I made it. It's funny because that was actually the first time I got to meet Patrick Stewart, who was my idol already before Star Trek even. It's funny, and I got to tell him this a couple of years ago, that I saw Excalibur. I saw him in Excalibur, and I went, "Oh my God, who is this whirlwind of a man?" And he's so powerful, and his voice is just so commanding. I want to be like that. And he was the catalyst, really, that made me embrace classical and Shakespearean theater so much. Before that, when I first came to you guys, I really didn't care about it that much. I considered myself a modern actor. I wanted to do, I loved musical theater. I wanted to do modern parts, and I didn't really embrace that part of my performance. And when I saw him in that movie, I went, wow. And this was on, VHS or before anything before you could stream. Yeah. And that was, it's so amazing that I actually got to meet him. And then I got to the set of Robin Hood Men in Tights, and I'm standing there and I hear Mel Brooks's voice coming through the doorway, standing at Warner Studios. And I went, wow, somebody's doing a great impression of Patrick Stewart too. And Patrick Stewart walks through the door, and I went, and then I got to do probably a week of filming with him, and I was just so in awe of the man. And I got to bring up back at MSU, we had studied the John Barton series of Royal Shakespeare, or the Royal Shakespearean Company. And I was just so enamored of it after that, after I'd heard of him and I'd seen him. And I started talking to him about that, and he was kind of perplexed that I knew about that. But he said, well, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? And so I got to meet him on that, even though I didn't get to double him on that. That was 15, 20 years before I'd actually started working with him. But yes, that was my first encounter with Patrick Stewart, and it just reinforced my tiny little part of the universe that belongs exactly where I belong. It showed me that my path is the one that I should be taking, and my paths and my chart across the stars are exactly where I should be heading. And the people that I adore are those people that really truly have made an impression in my life. And and I told him this, and I started crying, and he was kind of perplexed by that. But every time and I'm tearing up now talking to you, Paul, as one of my mentors, and every time I've gotten to go back to tell one of my mentors how much that actually means to me, it really gets to me. So, thank you.
You are welcome.
Yes, and thank you, Tim, for joining us for this interview. Because, like Paul said, I was going to ask you to wrap things up. We don't need to, because you sprinkled all of your wisdom throughout the last hour and a half, and I really appreciate your spending this time with us.
Well, I really appreciate both of you for everything that you do, and for giving me your time today, and making what I do seem important. So, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks a lot. It's so great to see you both.
Yep.